For 2 centuries, tomatoes killed only the wealthy, while the poor devoured them daily. The poison struck selectively. Aristocrats collapsed at their banquets while peasants thrived. Year 1548, port of Naples. Spanish galleons unloaded crates of the New World's strangest cargo, fruits that gleamed like wet blood. Merchants arranged them beside familiar produce, these specimens from the Americas. Their skin stretched taut over flesh that locals swore resembled human hearts. Old women crossed themselves, recognizing the leaves, identical to belladonna, the beautiful killer that grew wild in Italian hills. A Jesuit priest, examining the shipment, recorded their Aztec name, tomatl. He noted how dock workers refused to touch them bare-handed. Yet in the poorest quarters, where hunger outweighed superstition, calloused fingers were already reaching for the forbidden fruit. While merchants and housewives in Naples still argued over the strange fruit's origins, a different scene unfolded behind weathered wooden shutters across the poorer quarters. Here, where hunger gnawed deeper than fear, calloused hands reached past superstition. The aroma of garlic and olive oil already filled these cramped spaces. Maria Benedetti crushed the soft flesh between her fingers, watching scarlet juice stain her worn apron. Her iron pot bubbled over the hearth, transforming the forbidden fruit into something her grandmother would have recognized: sustenance. 6 children waited at her rough table, their eyes following each movement of her wooden spoon. Steam rose from bowls of thin pasta dressed in the crimson sauce, its tang cutting through the stale air of poverty. Each family in the alley prepared it differently, some with basil stolen from monastery gardens, others with precious pinches of salt. They ate heartily, unaware that across the Alps this same fruit would soon grace far grander tables. The same crimson fruits that bubbled in Naples's poorest kitchens now rattled northward in ox-drawn wagons, their wooden crates groaning through alpine passes. Frost clung to the canvas covers as drivers whipped their beasts harder, racing to deliver this exotic cargo before rot claimed the precious merchandise. In the candlelit kitchen of Lord Wilhelm's Bavarian estate, Henry Beaumont unpacked the first crate with trembling fingers. The French chef had staked his reputation on introducing this Mediterranean novelty to his master's table. Each tomato emerged perfect, skin taut, flesh firm beneath his practiced thumb. Henri's knife sliced through the fruit skin with surgical precision, releasing seeds and pulp onto the kitchen's finest pewter charger. The plate, hammered from English tin and lead, polished until it mirrored the flames, would present his creation to nobility. Red juice pooled against the metal's silvered surface. The silver clatters against pewter as Duke Ferdinand's trembling hand releases the spoon, crimson sauce still glistening on its bowl. His throat constricts. The musicians cease their lutes mid-chord, watching their patron's face drain of colour like parchment bleached in sunlight. Bile rises. Ferdinand clutches the edge of the mahogany table, knuckles white against dark wood. The tomato's remnants mock him from the gleaming plate, seeds scattered like tiny omens across the metal's surface. His stomach twists, a serpent coiling tighter with each laboured breath. Servants rush forward as the Duke collapses sideways, his velvet doublet soaking with cold sweat. Through blurring vision, he sees the other guests recoiling from their own plates, where identical crimson portions wait untouched. The feast transforms into panic, chairs scraping stone as nobles flee. The Duke's chamber door burst open as 3 physicians rushed through, their black robes billowing like ravens' wings. They found him convulsing on the Persian rug, his pewter plate overturned beside him, tomato remnants staining the imported silk crimson. The eldest physician knelt, pressing fingers to the Duke's throat while his pulse hammered erratically beneath clammy skin. His colleagues seized the offending fruit, holding it to the candlelight as if examining a murder weapon, their faces grave with professional certainty. Heavy leather volumes thudded onto the oak table as they searched desperately through illustrated herbals and poison compendiums. Their fingers traced Latin descriptions of belladonna, mandrake, and nightshade, all bearing an unmistakable resemblance to the innocent-looking specimen before them. Word of the Duke's mysterious affliction raced through the cobbled streets of Vienna, carried by trembling servants who'd witnessed his collapse. Within days, a Bavarian count succumbed to identical symptoms after tasting the same crimson fruit, his physicians documenting the violent stomach cramps that preceded his final breath. Letters sealed with black wax crossed the continent. Urgent warnings between noble houses describing servants finding their masters doubled over dining tables, foam speckling their lips. The pattern emerged with chilling clarity. Each victim had consumed the exotic red fruit hours before their agony began. Behind velvet curtains in Parisian salons, aristocrats whispered the fruit's new name, wolf peach, poison apple, while kitchen staff received strict orders to burn any specimen found in the gardens. The terror gripped tighter as each reported death bore the same hallmark, pewter plates still glistening with tomato juice. While physicians across Europe condemned the exotic fruit, the true killer sat beneath their very noses. Every banquet hall displayed the same gleaming treasure, pewter plates, chalices, and serving dishes that caught the light like silver mirrors. Craftsmen hammered these pieces from an alloy of tin mixed with lead, the heavier metal lending weight and prestige to each vessel. The wealthier the household, the more lead their smiths folded into the pewter. Lords demanded plates that felt substantial in the hand, goblets that rang with authority when struck. In the flickering shadows of great halls, these vessels bore intricate engravings, family crests, hunting scenes, biblical verses etched deep into their poisonous surfaces. Servants polished them daily until they gleamed like moonlight. Kitchen maids scrubbed away tarnish with sand and vinegar, unknowingly exposing fresh lead beneath. The metal waited, patient as death itself, for something acidic enough to awaken its lethal chemistry, wine, citrus, or the juice of a certain crimson fruit from the New World. That same pewter plate, still warm from the Duke's final meal, gleamed under the servants' careful polishing. Microscopic pores in the metal surface harboured a deadly secret, 30% lead by weight, forged into the alloy to make it malleable and lustrous. The tomato's flesh, rich with citric and malic acids, pressed against the pewter like a key turning in a lock. These acids dissolved the lead oxide coating, pulling metallic particles into the fruit's wet pulp at concentrations reaching 400 parts per million. Within minutes, the invisible contamination spread through every bite. The aristocrat's tongue would taste only sweetness, while microscopic lead particles infiltrated his bloodstream, binding to proteins, accumulating in bones, attacking the nervous system with each forkful of the crimson poison. The Duke's death certificate lay among dozens of others, each bearing the same damning accusation beneath the cause of mortality. Royal scribes dipped their quills into iron gall ink, scratching out proclamations that would echo through palace corridors from Vienna to Copenhagen. The tomato had claimed its place among arsenic and hemlock. Messengers rode hard through autumn rain, their leather pouches heavy with sealed decrees. At dawn they hammered these parchments onto church doors and market posts, the red wax seals cracking in the cold air. Guards tore down merchant stalls displaying the forbidden fruit, crushing the scarlet orbs beneath their boots. Estate managers burned entire fields where tomatoes had grown wild, the smoke visible for miles across the countryside. Farmers who defied the ban faced public flogging or worse, their names inscribed in ledgers of criminals. The crimson plant retreated to forgotten corners, its seeds scattered by birds beyond the reach of royal justice. The royal decree had spread like wildfire across the continent, yet in the shadows of abandoned gardens, the forbidden fruit continued to grow wild. Vines crept through rotting trellises, their crimson cargo dropping to earth untouched, while kitchen servants swept wide circles around the cursed plants. 3 generations passed with children warned never to touch the devil's berry, mothers slapping curious hands that reached for the gleaming orbs. Meanwhile, in the same grand houses where dukes had writhed in agony, the pewter plates remained polished daily, their lethal secrets sleeping beneath layers of beeswax and pride. The true killer sat at every aristocratic table, not in the food but beneath it. Lead particles, invisible as plague miasma, continued to seep into roasted meats and wine-soaked bread whenever acids touched the gleaming surface, claiming victims who never once tasted the innocent tomato they so feared.